Hey everybody, welcome back to D&J's Epic Quest. I am Justorian, and this is...
Dereker, hey man, it feels really fucking good to be back.
It does feel good. This is our first episode post-vacation, right?
Yeah, kind of an extended break, but
Right. Yeah. To our
sorry, I didn't mean to
viewers,
interrupt you.
no, it's cool. To our viewers, hopefully it didn't seem like too much of a break, but yeah, it's good to be back. I've been anxiously awaiting to read the next chapter, and I think it's only like it's just a little dinky 20-ish pager that is going to wrap up the Chain of Dogs subbook. So it's crazy to me that we are in the last subbook, and I feel like tensions are building, and it's always, I think this is the part where it's the shittiest to stop because it's just ramping up to the point where you know something's coming down the pipeline and you're just ready to keep reading, you
Yeah,
know?
you want to keep turning that page.
Right. And it's just super hard to stop. So hopefully with the home stretch, we could just continue on our weekly cadence and hopefully be done by what, June? May maybe? No. Oh no.
We got I think there's 24 chapters, so I think we got like 10 weeks left,
Oh geez. Okay.
and then an epilogue. But I guess we'll see. Maybe we, depending on the epilogue, maybe we do that with the last chapter. I know we talked about that for Gardens of the Moon, and I know we kind of did that a little differently. We wrapped that in with our wrap up for the book, but
Right.
I don't know. We got time to figure it out, and we'll figure it out.
I mean, I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to just, have the epilogue be its own episode. If it's terribly short, then maybe we could just kind of, our final impressions, or maybe it's just it. That's just the epilogue. It's 10-minute episode. Who knows? I wouldn't mind it from an editing perspective.
You might not even have to.
So, yeah, but whatever works. I'm just excited. And I think that this would probably be a good time to announce that I feel like we've come to the decision that we are going to read all of the Malazan books in publication order, like authors intertwined, the novellas that Erickson wrote. I don't know where the prequel and the sequel would fit into that, but
I would assume probably after we wrap up everything else.
so do you want to like read the prequel last? Like read everything
I don't know.
else? But yeah. Okay. Well, anyway,
We got plenty of time to figure that out.
But yeah, so it's good. I picked up a copy of Blood Follows, and from what I understand, that pops up after Memories of Ice. So
I thought we had one of the Esselmont novels after that.
no, I don't think Esselmont starts until after the fifth book.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I still got time to find those books.
Right. I think what I'll do is I'll send you the list that I saw and just you're like, yep, cool. Or if you find one that's like, nope, I'd rather do this, send it to me and we'll just check it out.
Sure.
So yeah, I guess what ended up starting being a 5-year journey is now going to turn into like what, a 8-9 year journey.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
That's fair. Yes, it is definitely a marathon, but it'll be nice. It'll be nice to kind of intermix everything in together, and I haven't heard anything negative about not doing it. So
right.
Yeah. Cool. Well, yeah, I guess outside of that, how you been, dude?
Well, since I guess it's basically been a week now, but I've been just distraught. It's gonna sound stupid. So for like 2 weeks now, I've had this fucking cold that I just can't kick. So I don't know how I sound, but I've got like fluid in my ears, so that's annoying as hell and just not felt great. But March 30th, which for whatever reason seems to be a big day throughout the history of my life, because my wife and I had like one of our first dates on that day. We went to a wild game like 10 years ago or something on that day. We closed on our house 5 years ago, March 30th. And then a week ago or whatever it was, our hockey coach decided to take another job and left for Wisconsin. So he's been here 11 years and he basically destroyed the program in the span of a few days because our assistant coach, who we thought would be the one to replace him, has by all indications, looks like he will be going with them to Wisconsin. No formal announcement on that, but that'll be coming tomorrow, I think. And we lost. So, like college sports here, there's like the transfer portal. Used to be if you wanted to transfer, I don't know about other sports, but at least in hockey, pre-COVID, if you wanted to transfer, you had to sit out a year before you could play for that new school. Now that's not a thing. You don't have to sit out. So we lost. We had some seniors who went pro. I mean, we were losing them anyways. We have a senior who could have came back for a fifth year, entered the transfer portal. We have he was a freshman this year, would be sophomore, went to the portal. Two stud freshmen that went to the portal. So we lost, on top of everybody else that graduated, we lost 4 guys. And we interviewed a coach, and it sounded like he was going to take the job, and he ended up turning it down. So I don't know what's going to happen. Yeah, it sucks. It sucks a lot because, like, that's my thing. Like, the Frozen Four is going on right now, and the Gophers are playing Boston University. I don't care at all, aside from what happened to our coach. But it's just it's been really stressful for me, even though it's like not important as it really is to me. It's a big deal. So I'm hurting over it. A lot of my friends, Andre, he's in a much worse spot about it than me. He is really upset. It was like trying to talk somebody off a cliff, and I came to the conclusion I might just have to push him off because there's no talking him off of it. So
yeah, sometimes you gotta push them off the cliff.
So that's about it here. Things have been busy. Dance competition last weekend, dance competition this next weekend. So lots going on. How about you?
The spring is definitely that time where things come alive again. No pun intended in there. I don't know. It's been kind of a shitty year so far. Granted, there are definitely some highlights in there, but so, dude, the day we were supposed to go to Pittsburgh, both of my kids were throwing up in the toilet. So we had to delay a day, and then we left Thursday morning. And then we got like 2 hours outside of Pittsburgh, so like Cleveland area, Cleveland, Ohio. And we stop at like one of those service plazas off the highway, and we grab supper, and it's like 7:00 at night or whatever, and we eat Burger King, right? And so I'm like a half hour away from our destination, the hotel, and I'm like, uh-oh, my stomach does not feel good. So we get to the hotel, and I'm just like drinking water and eating Tums and Pepto-Bismol and all this kind of stuff. Well, two in the morning comes up, and I'm like, yep, I have to throw up. And as I started throwing up, I could tell that the other end was going to do the same.
Oh, no, you got to sit down, man. You got to sit down and get a garbage can.
I didn't have that time, so I just hopped into the shower.
Oh, no. Oh, man.
Okay. However, the drain was clogged.
Oh, no. What a shitty situation.
Yeah, it literally was the shit. So I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, this is fucking disgusting. I'm sick. I don't feel good. I'm cold. And now I have a tub that is filled with bodily fluids that I cannot drain.
You weren't like standing in the tub, were you?
I had no choice. Yes, I was.
I didn't know if you were like hanging over the edge and then your head in the toilet or what.
I figured the tub was a lot easier to clean than the walls would have been. So yeah, I luckily had a pen in my pocket, in my jean pocket. So I asked Danny for it, and she gave me the pen, and I'm just sitting here using a pen to unclog a tub. Actually, it all went down. I was able to actually shower and wash off after that. But it's just like, we were going there to see, Danny's sick grandma, or not sick grandma, but, grandma that is, clearly near the end of her time. And we just didn't want anybody to get sick. So it was like the kids got sick, delayed our trip by 24 hours. And then I got sick Friday when we did finally go to see her grandmother. Her aunt had accidentally burst a pipe by trying to hang something on the wall. So we
Oh,
weren't able
fuck.
to see her that day. So then it comes down to Saturday, our last day there, and we're just cramming everything in. And there were like warnings of like tornadoes and severe thunderstorms and high winds that day. And it was just fucking nuts, man. Ah,
Damn. But you made it home in one piece.
I did make it home in one piece, yes.
That's good.
But all in all, the kids seemed to have fun. It was cool seeing her brother again. So, yeah.
I'm glad it was a good trip. I mean, aside from sickness.
Right. Yeah. The shitty part.
Yeah, the shitty part. The shitty part probably sucked.
It did suck a lot. But yeah, man. It's good to be back to it. I know that this chapter is pretty girthy in some sections. So what do you say? Should we get to chapter 13 here?
We got a couple things we got to do first.
Oh,
friend.
you're right. I always forget about this. I am so sorry, everybody. Derek.
First off, I'd like to thank our patrons, Jan, the Picker of Pies, Luciana. Luciana, I cannot for the life of me think of a good nickname. Throw us a bone here and help us out. And then Ryan, the Topological. Thank you guys. Appreciate that. And then, what was it? A couple days ago? What was this week, right?
Yeah, it was totally this week. Yep.
I know it feels like it's been forever, but I put out a call for an email, and we finally got one. So I will read that for us here.
I'm excited.
I know you've been waiting to read it. So, all right. The email reads, "Hello, Derek and Justin. Greetings from north of the border. I'm a regular listener and heard you guys mention feedback via email in your last episode, so I thought I'd take a few minutes to write you and let you guys know how much I appreciate your show. You've given me a lot of entertainment over the past few months and helped me get deeper into the Malazan books than I would have just reading them solo. I'm quite new to read-along podcasts. Never even knew there was such a thing until 4 or 5 months ago. It's a lot of fun reading a chapter, then firing up the podcast app on my phone and listening to you guys talk about and comment on the stuff I just finished reading. Really helps process the story and lets me catch details I missed. I read Gardens of the Moon along with your show, chapter by chapter, and I only recently overtook your progress in Deadhouse Gates. But no worry, even if I'm moving forward ahead of where you are, I'll still keep listening to your episodes as they come out. It will be a good way to refresh my memory of the backstory. So the main reason I initially got interested in the Malazan series was that it's written by Canadians. Go Canada! Both Erickson and Esselmont are Canucks, as I'm sure you know. I didn't know Esselmont was. So this fills my patriotic pride quota for a little while. But seriously, I've been a fan of fantasy, sci-fi, post-apocalyptic, and spy thrillers for a long time. And the Malazan series has been on my reading wish list for years and years. I'd been meaning to get around to it since at least 2015, only the daunting length of it sort of scared me off starting into it until this year. I made a couple New Year's resolutions a few months back. 1, to read more books, and 2, to stop paying attention to the news, politics, and pretty much all social media nonsense. I feel like the world is getting really toxic in recent years, and so much of the garbage people obsess over online and in the media has no impact on my life, so I cut it out completely. So far, it's proved to be a good experiment. 3 months in, and I have no clue what's happening in the world, and I do not care. I'm happier for it. My life feels so much more enjoyable, just focusing on family and local issues. For entertainment, I've replaced most TV and movies with books, audiobooks, and podcasts. That's how I started into the series and found your show. I try to read at least an hour a day, and I've always got my headphones on when I'm out of the house listening to an audiobook or a show like yours. Anyway, back on topic to the Malazan series. If I had to choose a favorite character, I'd say I enjoy reading the sections with Kalam most of all. In my mind, I pronounce his name like Kalam, sort of like Khal Drogo from Game of Thrones, and shock and awe with an M at the end. And I picture him like the actor who plays Kingsley Shacklebolt in the Harry Potter movies, named George Harris. I don't remember that character personally. With sort of Middle Eastern type of clothing, similar to Morgan Freeman's character, Azim, in that old Robin Hood movie from the 90s. Don't remember that either. I have the complete omnibus edition of the series on Kindle, all 10 books together in one file, so it's an enormous reading project. So long, in fact, that the chapter markers are at the bottom of the screen, all blend together into a nearly solid black line. Kind of a bad habit, I have when it comes to novels. I always want to rush through instead of taking my time. In this case, I can just read until I feel like stopping and not worry about progress, seeing as I likely won't finish it off until well into 2024. Oh, by the way, seeing you as you mentioned The Last of Us recently, it might interest you to know the town where I live was a filming location for the show. They filmed the scenes meant to be Jackson, Wyoming, right here in Canmore, Alberta. That creepy metal bridge Joel and Ellie have to cross in episode 6 is near my house, and the scenes with the characters on horseback when Joel spots his brother is in town too on Main Street. You can even see the restaurant where I work in the background. They filmed the show last year and closed down the whole center of town to make it look like an outpost shanty town. It was a big deal at the time, so everyone here knows about the show and we're excited to see it when it aired. They also filmed a lot of the wilderness shots around this area and on one of the nearby native reserves. Most of the city scenes meant to be Boston and Kansas City were filmed 60 miles east of here in Calgary. Not sure if they plan on coming back to film season 2, but if they do, I'll try to catch a glimpse of Pedro and Bella, and who knows, maybe I'll get a role as an extra or something. Okay, this is getting a bit longer than I expected, so I'll sign off here. Thank you for the show you guys make. I enjoy it very much. You seem like two regular dudes talking about the kind of stuff I enjoy, so keep it up. Hope you get Erickson on as a guest someday. If you do, please ask him to tell you how to pronounce the names of as many characters as you can. Go straight to the source to get the right answer. Otherwise, it's just someone's opinion. Peace and respect, Lau. So thank you, Lau. That was awesome.
Thank you. That was cool.
I really loved reading that. Like reading it out loud too. So thank you for that.
I'm glad that I didn't spoil it. I'm glad that I didn't read, although I was tempted to.
Yeah, it was a good one.
That was cool.
Definitely
that is cool.
Put a smile on my face when I saw it came. I don't remember what I was doing, but yeah, it was cool to see that.
Yeah. It is. I don't know. I guess it's this weird thing that I don't really think about, but like when it comes up, it's really cool. Like my motivation is not to like have this following, right? Like that's not my goal. It's cool that that's kind of like the thing that just kind of happens as we keep moving along. But it was super humbling and gratifying. I had ran across a Reddit post and I sent you this, but I wanted to share it as well. I'd come across a Reddit post about someone who's just like, yeah, I'm a first time reader. And, usually when I see those posts, I'm like, hey, just as a heads up, like we're first time readers too. And we've just decided to, I guess, podcast our experience as we go through the chapter. And someone commented to that and they're like, D&J is like the best for new readers. They do such an amazing job. And it was just so cool to just be able to post something and have somebody just uplift that. And it made me feel absolutely astounded.
Yeah, it is a cool thing to know that somebody else finds value in what we're doing. Because it is a lot of fun to do, but to know that somebody else like actually like people are listening to it. So I mean, I think they like it. Otherwise they wouldn't listen. But to see posts like that is a good reminder.
Right. Yes. That the goal that we originally set out to do, we are fulfilling. So thank you, Rusty McDonald, for supporting us in your Reddit comment.
Thank you.
But yeah, I guess that aside, I don't think people are here to hear us talk about our lives.
Let's get back.
Sweet. What do you say? Should we get to chapter 13 here of our 16th episode?
Hell yes. Do you want the epigraph or do you want me to take it?
Doesn't matter to me.
All right. Well, I'll take it and then you can roll into your section here.
Sounds good.
For whatever reason, I always like that alternating thing we do.
That's fair. I guess when you have the first sections, I can read the epigraphs.
Definitely. Yeah. All right. An exquisite match of dog to master, the Wiccan cattle dog is a vicious, unpredictable breed, compact yet powerful, though by far its most notable characteristics is its stubborn will. Lives of the Conquered, Ilum Trouth.
And that is definitely a reflection in this chapter. So here we go. Section 1. As Duiker walked between tents, he heard shouts up ahead. Before he could react, a Wiccan dog appeared and was charging right at him. He fumbled with his sword, and even though he knew it was too late, At the last second, the cattle dog ran around Duiker, and the historian could see that a lap dog hung in the cattle dog's mouth. The cattle dog ran on, disappearing between tents. Ahead, a number of nobles were running towards him. They had large stones and umbrellas from the Knees. Their expressions were raw fury. They stopped to ask Duiker if he saw a cattle dog with a rare hen geese roach dog in its mouth. Duiker makes a joke about the dog being raw instead of rare. I thought that was fucking funny. This infuriates the noble, who was younger, his honey-colored skin and large eyes denoting him as Quan Talion. He had the physical build of a duelist, and in his eyes, Duiker could see that this was someone who enjoyed killing. The man approached and said to Duiker that it wasn't a time for jokes, and that an apology was in order, even though it would not save the historian from a beating. Just then, a horse approached behind Duiker. It was Corporal List. He ignored the nobleman and explained to Duiker that they couldn't be late, and where was Duiker's horse? Duiker's reply to List that his horse was taking a day off, and then he turned to the nobleman and asked if they were done here. The nobleman said that they were done for now. As List and Duiker made their way through the noble encampment, and when there was some distance where they were some distance away, List leaned over to tell Duiker that Alar looked as if he was going to punch the historian. Duiker asked if he was known then. List says yes, he was, and his full name was Pulyik Alar. The historian says that it was unfortunate for Alar that he was known. List grinned at this. Lanestro was whipping his servant. List and Duiker banter about the reason for the whipping to be taking place as they approached Lanestro. Duiker ignored Lanestro and went straight to the servant. He was old and down on his elbows and knees. Lanestro told the historian that it wasn't any of his business. Duiker replied that these servants helped hold the defense at the Sakala River, and that defense helped to keep Lanestro's head on his shoulders. Lanestro is pissed and squeals that Coltane stole property and that he's been judged by the council and a fine has been issued. List comments that the fine has been pissed on. This sent Lanestro into a deeper rage, raising his whip as if to strike List. Duiker intervenes by reminding Lanestro that striking an officer of the 7th would get him hanged. Lanestro could be seen struggling to secure his anger, but eventually lowered the whip. Duiker told List that they should take this man to a healer. Then they took the servant to their horse and laid him belly down on a saddle. Lanestro demanded that the servant be returned to him. Duiker tells the noble that the servant would just be beaten again, and explains that the servant will not be returned. In a shrill response, the noble tells Duiker that all acts of Malazan law are being noted and there will be recompense, plus interest. Duiker had had enough. He quickly lunged at Lanestro with both hands. He had the noble's cloak and collar and gave the man a teeth-rattling shake. The whip fell from the hands and the eyes grew wide with terror. Duiker threatens the man and then lets him go. Lanestro collapsed to the ground as he had fainted. From out of nowhere, Nethpara scolds the historian. List quickly came to Duiker's defense and explained the situation. They left behind a gathering in the clearing. List walked alongside Duiker, leading his horse by the reins. They have a short conversation about the nobility and their persistence to have the illusion of order. They left the nobles' camp and entered the camp with the wagons of the wounded. A persistent chorus of pain was heard throughout the camp that sent chills down Duiker's side. List could be heard saying that they should have walked around. Duiker explained that even with the beaten servant, he would still have suggested they walk through the camp. List found a healer, and they dropped the servant off with a woman with blood-smeared hands. They finally reached the 7th's main camp, just as the sun was near setting. He could see off to the side some type of game being played, and laughing could be heard. They were a day away from the river Paantha, and the impending battle loomed in the air. Coltane's tent was flanked by 2 of the 7th Marine, and Duiker recognized one of them. As they walked through the tent flaps, the female Marine acknowledged his presence, with a look in her eyes that suggested a night of doing the horizontal mambo. Bliss caught on to this look and encouraged what Duiker might be thinking. Duiker tells him to knock it off. Coltane stood near the center. It seems they had just interrupted a conversation as everyone went silent. Bolt explains to the group that Sormal was explaining about the Semp Godling. The spirit said that something damaged it badly. A demon of some kind, and the claw had company. Duiker in question asked if it was an Imperial demon, but Bolt just shrugged at this question. After a long pause, Sormal started to explain that when Nil fled into himself that night, sheltered from the Semp's sorceress attacks, the Tano spirit walker of this land is said to be able to walk through a hidden world, not a true warren, but a realm where souls are freed of flesh and bone. It appears that Nil stumbled into a place like this, and there we came face to face with someone else. He had thought at first it was a monstrous reflection of himself, a boy of Nil's own age with a demonic face. Nil believes that it was bonded with a demon and that attacked the Semk. Imperial demons rarely possess human familiars. The group wonders who sent the demon. After a few minutes, Bolt stretches his legs and tells everyone that Rouleau has prepared a welcome for them on the other side of the Pantha River. Coltane tells Duiker that the historian is to ride with the Marines. Duiker makes a small argument that he would last 5 minutes in battle. Captain Lull persuades Duiker, to which the historian finally agrees to riding with the Marines. Duiker tells Coltane that letting the servants go was a mistake, as the nobility are making sure their servants will never stand again, so they won't be able to be taken again. Coltane asks Bolt if they still had the scroll that demanded compensation. Bolt says that he does. Coltane tells Bolt to buy all the servants from the nobles. Lull cleared his throat and asked if the coin was the soldiers' pay. Coltane's only response was that the Empire always pays its debts. The momentary silence held in the tent said that Duiker was not alone in his thoughts of recognition for Coltane. I forgot how long that one was.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I know we got this idea from Lee and Mora, and I don't know, like you said, why we didn't do this sooner, but you had word counted this, and it was like 8,100 words.
Right, yeah, so. It was almost like 81. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I think that I feel like I go through these moments where like the actiony stuff I can summarize really well, but the non-actiony stuff I feel like I describe more. I don't know why it's that way. You'd feel like it would be the other way around, but yeah, I don't know.
There's just a lot. I mean, even if it's not action oriented, there's still a lot of stuff.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So you remember when they were, I guess, when the author was describing Alar, the honey-colored skin and large eyes, denoting him as Quantalian?
Yes.
So I'm pretty sure this is a broad representation of Asian characteristics, which would suggest that Apsalar/Sari would have similar characteristics. So you remember how Mora at the end of our Gardens of the Moon wrap-up was asking us if we knew like what Apsalar/Sari was, like what her not ethnicity, but where her nationality was or would align to ours.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like this is that part where we kind of get an understanding of that in an indirect way.
Yeah. I guess for myself, I mean, unless like the writing, specifically states, if the character is white or black or whatever, I don't usually picture it one way or the other. They're just the character to me.
Right.
But that's just me. So I didn't really pick up on that a whole lot.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I guess it's one of those things where like, that's how I guess the characters look to me, I guess. It's not like important by any means, but it just kind of helps my artistic eye.
Sure. I could understand that. As I am not artistic at all. Like, I guess I can understand that from your point of view, but it wouldn't help me because I can't draw for shit. So
Well, it's just one of those things where I kept drawing like shit over the years and got better. That's it. That's it. You just gotta stick to it. But you also have to enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it, then don't draw. Like there's nothing wrong with that.
right. I'm gonna go back to the very beginning of this chapter. So when the dog had the other dog in its mouth,
Yep.
I really wasn't sure if the bigger dog was gonna eat it or if it was like rescuing it. Because I'm thinking like if it was gonna eat it, why didn't it just gobble it down right away? You know?
I mean,
I don't
I
don't
guess I'm not much of a dog person, but I guess the way that I saw it in my mind was like how a cat steals food. They like go and hide, you know? So like that's what I was imagining is that it was going to eat it, but it needed a place to eat it. So, you know, because I mean, clearly it's being chased. So it's trying to find a spot where it can stop and eat, I guess.
Yeah, I just wasn't like it really made me question it, and it's probably not going to have any bearing on anything, but it's just like it made me think about it. And then even I think it was in this was it in this section they're talking about how some people were playing a game, or was that in a later section?
No, that was this one.
That really struck me too, because it's just like, I mean, you guys are getting your ass kicked up and down this continent.
Right.
You're running for your life. You've got to be exhausted, but you're taking this time to find some enjoyment in, like, basically, I know they weren't playing baseball, but that's almost like what I pictured was just like a baseball game, like just to be carefree for a few minutes and just like in the midst of all this madness, you can find some calm and peace before you get destroyed tomorrow.
Right. Right. And I mean, this is what the nobles are trying to do is they're trying to take this like really messed up situation and almost like give it the illusion of control, you know, so that like they just continue to do what they're doing, you know, as if they don't have armies chasing them, you know, and they're so worried about this rare dog when in the bigger picture that dog isn't going to do anything. I would chop it up and eat it. Like, you know, if worse comes to worse, I'm going to take that rare dog. And yes, I'm sorry that it, you know, it cost you this much money, but I'm fucking hungry. I'm eating it.
You can have a little appetizer.
Right. Yeah. And I think that was it was really clever of Duiker to joke about the dog being raw rather than cooked rare. So I almost didn't catch that at first, but that was clever.
Well, what else did you have here?
So the servant that Lanestro is whipping is getting whipped because this was the servant that was responsible or held the leash of the Heggie's dog, Roach dog. And I was just very disheartened throughout this whole scene because no matter what circumstances the nobles are in, it seems they'll always find a way to live their pampered lives, you know?
Well, eat the rich, man.
Right.
Fuck 'em.
That's what I'm saying. Fuck them. But it was just a disheartening scene. And I'm kind of glad that Duiker, like, seems like he finally pops a little bit, you know? Like, you don't see the gravity of the situation and then, like, just shakes the fuck out of him, you know? Like, this is what you're fucking worried about, you know? It just, yeah. I mean, I would explode like that too. You can't fix stupid, right? Isn't that the saying?
You can't fix stupid. That scene reminded me a lot of actually one from Aliens. If you remember when Corporal Hicks, when they find out that Burke was gonna like sabotage their sleep capsules on the way back home and kill everybody who survived, and Hicks grabs them and he's like, "We waste them," and then the aliens cut the power, and so they obviously have other problems. But like that's what that reminded me of.
Gotcha. I feel like I don't remember that specific scene, but again, I just got to go back and watch it again.
What do you mean they cut the power? They're fucking animals, man.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Now I remember. Okay.
Yeah,
I had
like
to
that
do
part.
The voice. You just had to do the voice.
Yeah, that was Hudson freaking out.
Yeah. I thought that the whole female Marine wanting to, like, you know, he was just eye fucking the hell out of the historian. And Duiker or List was kind of catching on and was encouraging what Duiker might be thinking. And I don't know. I really liked that really small interaction. And it's just funny that all negative Nancy Duiker here is doubting himself because he's twice her age. So I think I remember in the last episode, you were wondering how old Duiker is from the last episode. And this is only fresh in my mind because I was editing it before we started recording this one, was that the Marines appeared to be in their 30s. So if Duiker is twice their age, he's got to be about 60
ish.
ish.
Which is still like, so like I think like my dad's he'll be 63 in August. Like I couldn't imagine my dad out, hoofing it in a freaking army, and my dad's in pretty good shape, but like Duiker's also been doing it for like half his life. So he's been doing it basically since this soldier was born, roughly.
Well, right. And of course all those like Fountain of Youth creams that Kellenvid gave him, he probably looks like he's in his 40s. So, I could totally see why this female Marine is maybe finding him attractive a little bit, And I just, what I wrote was, Duiker just needs to show her what an old man can do that one her age couldn't.
Well,
but I thought it was a nice segue to get away from kind of like all the bullshit and the politics and just kind of come back to a little bit of human nature of, fucking one's brains out. Nice kind of way of creating a little calm before the storm.
There you go.
Yeah. I guess my question for you actually is what did you think about this whole Tano Spirit Walker hidden world, not a true Warren realm where souls are freed of flesh and bone? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I didn't really think too deeply on it, to be perfectly honest. I mean, I don't really have anything that sticks out about it. I'm like, well, that's kind of weird and sounds cool, but I mean, if we find out more about it sometime down the road, then I guess my feeling is just like, well, maybe this is just kind of the introduction to it, and I'll learn about it later, and I'll just deal with it later.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would agree with you. It's cool to conceptualize and like think about, but like what it means or how it intertwines with everything, I don't think that there is enough information available, like you said. But I just didn't know if you had any additional thoughts or like if I was missing something or yeah.
No, not anything that I picked up on.
Cool. Well, I guess the only other thing that I had a comment on is Coltane's only response was that Empire always pays its debt. Oh, that was actually your comment.
That was my comments.
So I will let you go.
Yeah, I kind of felt like this was Coltane's, like, I wonder if maybe he's not outwardly showing it, but he's recognizing that things are futile. Like, what's the fucking point? Buy these slaves. What does it matter who's got the gold if they're all dead type thing? Yeah,
right, yeah.
And I mean, I don't remember who said it, but in one of the earlier chapters, or maybe I think it was in Kalam's when he was looking at all the kids on the stakes and shit. Where he's talking about the Empire will get its vengeance. I feel like it's tied into that. The Empire will pay its debt by basically avenging everybody that was killed. That's kind of how I view it, anyways.
I mean, that makes sense. I would agree with that. I don't know if I have anything else to add on to that statement.
Yeah, I don't know that most of the time we don't really we don't write down like notes on each other's sections, but this one, when I read it, I probably was reading through your summary and then it just kind of came to me. And so I'm like, okay, well, I gotta jot this down. Otherwise there's no way I'm going to remember it.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, maybe we start implementing where we make one or two comments on each other's sections, because I don't necessarily feel like they're my sections. I'm just the one summarizing it, Yeah.
I feel like most of the time, like I'll pick up something to talk about, based on what you read and what you talk about. So, I mean, yeah, we could definitely do that. But that one was on my mind and I didn't want to forget it. So I just jotted it down.
Yeah. I know that you kind of have, when one is summarizing a section, you have a little bit more of an intrinsic understanding because you're the one who's literally reading every sentence and summarizing every sentence. so you have a little bit of a deeper understanding for that particular summary. But yeah.
Well, anything else you want to talk about in that first section?
No, not at all. I going back and after like being able to read this chapter, this section really feels like that nice transitional section from the last chapter and what's about to come ahead. You know what I mean? Like it's a nice way of like setting the tone. You know, nothing action oriented really happens. Like, you know, just kind of that calm before the storm type
Right.
of. But no, outside of that, I do not have anything else.
All right. Okay. Well, I'll get going into my first section here.
Outside of the nobles are a piece of shit.
Yeah, fuck those guys. Cape moths flew across what was visible of the moon. Duiker sat next to a cook fire, nervous and unable to sleep. All around him was silent despite the huge city camp that was so exhausted even the animals were quiet. Some few minutes later, a dark shape sat next to Duiker. Duiker said that a fist needs his rest. Coltane grunted and said, "What about a historian?" Duiker said they never rest. Coltane responded by saying they are denied their needs. Duiker says it was ever thus. Coltane remarks that Duiker jokes like a Wiccan, and he tells Coltane that he has made a study out of Bolt's humor. As they sat in silence, Duiker thought he could not claim to know this man. If he had any doubts, he did not show them, nor would he. A commander couldn't reveal his flaws, but even Bolt thought Coltane took it to extremes with how he isolated himself, even among wicked standards. He never made speeches for his troops, and while he was often seen with his troops, he didn't make a point of it, as many commanders did, yet they were his soldiers. Duiker thought about what would happen if his men lost faith in him, and wondered if they were merely hours away from the breaking point. Coltane spoke. He said the enemy hunts their scouts. They don't know what they're walking into the valley ahead. Duiker asked about Sormo's allies. Coltane said the spirits were preoccupied. Can-Eld, Debral, Tython, Semk, Tapassi, Halifan, Ubari, Hisari, Sialk, and Guran. Duiker noted that it was now 4 tribes and 6 city legions. He thought maybe he was finally hearing some doubt out of the fist. Coltane said the army that awaits them is one of 2 holding the south. Duiker didn't know how he could possibly know this. He asked if Shaik had marched out of Rariku. Coltane said she had not, and that was a mistake. Duiker wanted to know what held her back. Had the rebellion been crushed? Coltane said no, it had not been crushed. It commands all, and as for Shaik, perhaps her visions had taken her to the future. Perhaps she knows in the end the whirlwind will fail. Even if there is a momentary victory, the Empress will strike back and wipe the land clean of them. Duiker asked how far away the other army in the south was. He didn't get a direct answer. Coltane told him he intended to be in Vathar 2 days before it. Duiker thought he must have gotten word that Ubard had fallen, along with Devral and Asmar. Duiker thought if they could make it to the Vathar River, it was a straight shot south to Aran. He told Coltane that the Vathar River was still months away. What of tomorrow? Coltane replied that tomorrow they would crush Camus Rouleau, and that one must think far in advance to succeed. A historian should understand that, and then he walked away. Duiker watched the fire die out and had a bad taste in his mouth. He thought that taste was fear. He didn't have Coltane's optimism, and he could only see a few hours ahead as it was, thinking that each morning may be his last. Coltane expects the impossible, and he expects everyone to share his madness. The camp was starting to wake. The foolish dog horse warriors were preparing their mounts. They were wearing heavy armor, as were the horses. Duiker asked why they didn't use this armor at the Sakala crossing. The warrior simply said they didn't need to then. Duiker said, "But now you do?" The warrior replied that Rouleau's army hadn't seen heavy cavalry yet. Duiker wondered if they could pull it off. Could they wheel or gallop in a line? And wondered how long it would take before the horses tired out. He told them they did look intimidating, though. He watched the young warrior draw a sword that Duiker thought was too big for him to handle. An older veteran told the young warrior named Temul to make sure he stayed limber in the saddle as he practiced some sword technique. Duiker asked if they planned to dismount once they reached the enemy. The veteran told him sleep would have been good for his mind. Duiker wandered off. He never really enjoyed the hours leading up to a battle. The typical rituals of checking armor and weapons never really worked for him. An experienced soldier could do those checks in a matter of heartbeats, and he'd never been able to repeatedly do these checks to kill time. He thought that some soldiers readied themselves to live and others to die, and in the hours leading up to battle, it was damned hard to tell which would happen. The sky was lightening into the east, and the cool night breeze was warming up. He left the Wiccan camp and entered the Seventh's camp. The different elements of the armies were all arranged neatly and in a manner where Duiker could identify them all. There was still one unit that was unique to the Empire. The Emperor's invention, armed with crossbows, short and long swords, and every third soldier had a round shield of thick, soft wood that had been soaked before battle. These shields would catch and hold enemy weapons. Though these shields didn't last long in battle, the Marines had come to call the tactic pulling teeth. Corporal List and Captain Lull were at the camp as the troops were getting ready. Lull asked if he had a cloth for his face, as they would be eating dust today. List said they would be a part of the wedge. He didn't look excited about it. Lull looked at Duiker and said he didn't get any sleep, did he? He told List if he starts to fall asleep, to whack him in the head. List said he would, if he was able to stay awake himself. All this good cheer was wearing him out. Lull said they shouldn't dwell on what was to come. Duiker asked what the order was. The Marines were the spear point. The horse riders, one on the flanks. The heavy cavalry come up behind the Marines. Then the wounded, protected on all sides by the 7th Infantry, and at the end are the Hisari Loyals and the 7th Cavalry. It took him a moment to realize the refugees and the herds would be held back. Duiker said they go into this battle unencumbered, other than the injured. Captains Chenid and Salmar appeared, and they were pissed off at the sappers. They took off last night. They were cowards, and he spat out a string of curses. Lull said they didn't desert. They were up to something. He was sure of it. A horn sounded a long, single blast. Chenid said the waiting was over, and for them to save him a patch of grass when they went down. Duiker had not heard that send-off in a long time. Lull said, according to rumors, Chenid's father was in Dasim's first sword. Even when names are stricken from the official history, the past shows its face. Duiker said he was going to check his armor.
I found the section really interesting.
I did too, but I didn't have a lot of talking points for this because, as you would say, I felt like it was pretty transitional.
Right.
So if you have things, I would love to hear it.
I didn't have anything at the time, but hearing you talk about it, it just kind of gives me a moment to think. And that is, you almost kind of get this sense of like dueling optimism versus pessimism in this kind of scene with Duiker and Coltane, right? Like Coltane is looking at the bigger picture, where Duiker is just totally enumbed by all of it, right? Like he's focusing on being able to survive just a day at a time. And think about what that does to your body. Like when you stress out about that much, like there's several moments in these two sections where Duiker doesn't seem like he's sleeping. But Coltane, on the other hand, with his optimism, I'm assuming is probably getting some decent rest because that's what he needs to do to make sure that everybody survives. You know what I mean? So it's just kind of funny how you get this tale of two people, you know, and I get where Duiker's coming from because all he jots down is pessimism, you know, the events of how it turned out. He's recording history. He's not living it. Coltane's living it.
But Duiker is living it. I mean, too, he's right in the thick of it.
That's true.
But yeah, he does have the task to record it. So that's a good point. But
Yeah.
I feel like I probably align more with Duiker because if I was in this, like, I don't know how you could look at the long game in it. To me, it's like, okay, well, if I make it through today, then I'll worry about tomorrow if I wake up. And
right.
If I don't wake up, then it's not my problem anymore.
Exactly. The other thing is this section also ties into Corblo Dom's army that Kalam was working around, because that is the army that is also occupying the South. If you go back to like Kalam and Manala's chapters, they talk about the South a lot. So from what I've gathered, and I will be honest, a lot of this, I watched the video after being recommended to watch the video of the Sakala crossing. I wondered if there was one that existed for the Garan, and I sent it to you, and it was
I
cool.
didn't get a chance to watch it.
Yeah, you totally should, because what I did this time is after I read the chapter, I went and watched that video, which I guess I wouldn't say it's fortunate or anything, but like as we'll see in this next section, that is the next section that I had to do. It totally helped me write it because like I could envision it this time as I was rereading it and summarizing. Like I could just put picture or like words to video. So
You know what I think would be a good idea is when this episode is published, you should link that video in the show notes.
yeah, I totally should. Like just put it in as like a link.
The video, yeah, that you a link to the video that you're talking about, because maybe somebody else would probably love to watch that if they, I mean, maybe they didn't even know it existed, like we didn't until we were recommended the other one.
Right. And I think that it's nice because the guy that does a video, and I totally forget his channel name, but he does it in a way that doesn't spoil anything. He purely just talks about that particular section and how everything was formed. So in that video, he basically says that Corblo Dom's army is the one that's heading south, and Coltane, again having this big picture mindset, he wants to beat Corblo Dom's army to the Vathar River. So then that way there are no more obstacles and it's just a straight shot to Aaron.
He's gonna have to put some hustle in his bustle here and get going.
Right, exactly. But yeah, it just I really liked this section. It was very transitional, as you pointed out. But it it was just kind of cool to just have the scene with Duiker and Coltane, and then, you know, Duiker kind of observing everybody preparing, and again, him just dreading it because he's been there before, but again, he's not looking at the huge picture.
Right. Yeah, it's like you can't see the forest for the trees type deal to me.
Right, yeah. Whereas Coltane's got this all like planned out. I'm guessing that he's not being very transparent with everybody about what's happening, which makes sense. Why would you explain it a million times?
Right.
But yeah, outside of that, I don't have any other comments for it.
No, let's get into the thick of it here. This is the battle section here.
This is the battle section. All right.
Take it away. Yeah, you got the battle this time. I think I had the Sakala, right?
I believe so, yeah.
All right. Go for it.
All right. Here we go. It was high noon before the final positioning was complete. The refugees were not happy when they finally understood that they would not be joining the main army in the crossing. The Weasel clan was to be their escort. There was an unplanned calm, despite the frenzied efforts of the noble council and their many attempts at delivering protests and writs. With the main force assembled, Coltane gave the order to move forward. The day was blistering hot, and dust was stirred into the air. Grass was worn away from the hooves trampling it down. Lull's prediction about eating dust was accurate. Duiker took a sip of water from his tin flask. On the historian's left was Corporal List, and to his right strode the woman he lusted for. He didn't know her name, nor did he want to know what was to come. His thoughts felt fevered and irrational. The river Pantha divided a dried-up lake bed, a giant crater they found themselves marching into. As the army reached the eastern end and made its descent into the dried-up lake bed, Duiker was presented with a panoramic view of the battlefield. Kamisterlo's army waited for them. Standards could be seen and the glare of iron in the morning sun. Flags and standards rose above a sea of peaked helmets. 600 paces lay the thin and shallow river Pantha. A trader track marked where one could cross the river. It wound westward to what had been a gentle slope up to the west bank of the dried-up riverbed. Rouleau's sappers had been busy. A ramp of sandy earth had been constructed. The natural slope on either side of the ramp had been carved away to create a steep cliff. To the south edge were rock walls carved out by a flow of water at one point, and to the north was a ridge of serrated hills as white as bone. Thomas Rouleau had made sure there was only one point of exit, and that was up the steep hill he and his sappers had engineered. And it was at the summit where Rouleau's elite forces waited for them. Corporal List could be heard cursing this realization. To the south was a column of smoke that was from the garrison at Nelm. Duiker looked in that direction and noticed a fortress resting on a pinnacle overlooking the southeast edge of the dried-up lake bed. Duiker wondered out loud who it belonged to. Bliss said it was once a monastery that is likely belonged to one of the seven holies. Rouleau had positioned 3 forces on the west side of the river, down in the lake bed, blocking the north and south ends of the dried-up lake bed. Each of the 3 forces outnumbered Coltane's army by a staggering amount. A roar and a clanging of weapons could be heard from the army of the apocalypse. The Marines marched in silence towards the river crossing, the sounds of the apocalypse looming over them, but the 7th did not falter. Duiker thinks to himself, what will come to this to the gods below? The army made its way through the ankle-deep water a dozen paces across. The river's coolness disappeared when Duiker stepped out onto the opposite bank. He suddenly felt thirsty, and sweat was running down underneath his armor and into his palms. He gripped the shield tighter and rested his other hand on the pommel of his sword. Duiker senses his surroundings, and he has a thought about the moments before battle. And how else does one answer the call of incalculable loss? List is heard beside the historian saying that their swords will be well notched this day. He asks the historian in his experience, was dust or mud worse? Duiker tells List that dust chokes and blinds, but mud slips us from underneath our feet. He has a dark thought about it becoming muddy real soon, with the blood and bile and piss soaking into the sand. Duiker asks List if this was his first battle. List responds by saying that he hasn't been in the thick of things yet. To Duiker, List's response sounded resentful, and he could understand why. List's companions had all endured their first battle already, something both feared and anticipated. Only experience could shatter the fears of one's first battle. The historian would have preferred a different vantage point to see the battle. He wondered why Coltane had put him here. They were 100 paces from the ramp. The Crow horse warriors galloped across the front of the flanking enemy forces. Duiker thought that they would be attacked from 3 sides. They'll finally behead the serpent, if they can. The Crow horse warriors were readying lances and bows, heads affixed on the enemy positions. A horn was heard, letting them know to ready their shields. The center and the rear lifting their shields overhead. Rouleau's archers were getting into position. The flanking forces of Rouleau's archers were in disbelief as Coltane's army kept marching with no reaction from Coltane on the enemy's position. Without pause, the 7th ascended the ramp. The slope was soft, deliberately treacherous, and soldiers stumbled. Suddenly, enemy arrows took to the skies, sweeping down like rain. Arrows snapped and skidded across the raised shields. Some even made it through tiny gaps to strike armor and helmets. The ground pitched underfoot, but yet Coltane's wedge formation climbed on without pause. Duiker's elbow buckled as an arrow hit his shield with force. 3 more rapped down in quick succession, all skidding away off the shields. The air underneath the shields reeked like sweat and piss. They did not answer the attack, determined to reach the crest, where Semk and Garan heavy infantry waited. The historian knew they were being driven towards a threshold, and that first contact would be explosive. The ramp was steep and high on either side, closer to the west ridge. Warriors from a tribe Duiker didn't recognize, potentially the Caneld, began assembling on the banks and readying short horn bows. Duiker knew at this moment that they were going to fire down on them from both sides. Once they locked with the Semk and Garan heavy infantry. Duiker heard Bolt bellow a command, and in a flash of dust and iron, Crow horse warriors wheeled and headed for the banks. The Caneld short horn bow warriors were not expecting this and were caught off guard. Caneld bodies fell. Tumbling down the ramp, Crow riders rode the edges of the ditch, firing an onslaught of arrows onto the soldiers on the high banks. A second shout reined in the horse warriors, their lead warrior only a dozen paces from waiting Garan and Semk heavy infantry. Because of the sudden pause of the Crow horse warriors, caused confusion in the Garan and Semk and drew them forward. The tip of the wedge surged forward when they saw the enemy's disorder. The Crow horse warriors quickly got out of the way from the charging Marines, and the wedge struck. Duiker could feel the impact through his shield. He could see little from his position in his ranks. The only view he had was a small patch of blue sky directly above the heads of the soldiers. Into that air spun a helmet with a bearded head still strapped in it. Suddenly, a hand tugged at his shield arm. Bliss told him that he was to turn now. Duiker just glared at List. Bliss, seeing this reaction, told Duiker so he could see. He was in the next to last line of the wedge formation. A space of 10 paces between the Marines and the mounted armored Foolish Dog clan opened up. Beyond them, Duiker had the opportunity to see the rest of the battle taking place from this vantage point. To the south was the force consisting of Tithani archers and Debral cavalry. Legions of Halifan infantry marched to close the back end of the south side. Duiker thinks to himself that this was one jaw, and to the north was the other, now snapping shut. He looked to the north and saw that this force was 50 paces away, contacting the 7th Army. To the east of the river, a huge battle was taking place. The Weasel clan had found their fight. Duiker wondered how Kamis Rouleau had managed to circle his forces around. Duiker tells himself that the Weasel clan should hold fast, as they'll get no relief. Duiker is brought back to his immediate surroundings. The clash of weapons and screams from the west ridge was growing. The wedge slowly flattened out as it met an anvil of resistance. Duiker's reaction to this has him thinking about Togg's 3 masks of war: terror, rage, and pain. He won't take this ridge, or we won't take this ridge. A roar sounded in the lake bed, and the historian twisted around. The north and south forces were closing around the 7th, guarding the wagon and wounded. Duiker watched with dread as the 7th's box around the wagons and the wounded was crumbling. To Duiker's surprise, the 7th was giving the enemy resistance. On all sides of the 7th's box, the enemy reared back, as if those jaws closed on horns, or thorns. There was a pause, a chill that kept both sides apart. The space between them littered with bodies of the dead. The silence raised the hair on the back of the historian's neck. The 7th did the unexpected. They rushed forward. The box formation bulged, distorting into an oval, and pikes struck. Enemy ranks crumbled on all sides, melted, and suddenly broke. The oval stopped and then drew back as if a mechanism that was engineered to be perfectly timed. The 7th did it again and again, a rhythm of death to the enemy. His attention was brought to movement among the Foolish Dog clan. Nil and Nether had emerged from the front line, leading a Wiccan mare. The 2 warlocks stopped, and Nether put his hands on the horse. A moment later, Duiker was stumbling as the last line in the wedge surged forward up the ramp. A sergeant nearby could be heard telling everyone to ready their close weapons. Liz said beside him that this was it. There was no time to reply, as they were suddenly amongst the enemy. The scene before him was brutal. Blood gushed, and people were dying. Everywhere. Duiker's nameless female Marine shouted to watch his right. He pivoted in time to dodge an attack. He stepped in past the thrust and drove his short sword through a Semk woman's face. He stumbled and would have fallen if it wasn't for the solid shield at his back. The nameless woman Marine spoke into his ear that she would ride him until he begged tonight. Duiker used this thought to focus on the battle ahead, but not because of lust, and straightened and regained his balance. Ahead, the front lines of the Marines were thinning, and the wedge was on the verge of collapse. Semk warriors intermixed with the front lines of the Marines. It was why the rear ranks were pushed forward to deal with. The Marines started to buckle. Three horns sounded quickly. The Imperial called a split. Duiker looked around for List, but the corporal was nowhere to be found. He did see the nameless female Marine and stumbled over to her. He asked if it was 4 horn blasts, which would have meant to withdraw. The female Marine said that it was 3 and they needed to split, and now. She pushed him away and he followed. They stumbled to the south side of the ramp and got down into the narrow ditch filled with ankle-deep blood. The Grand Heavies paused as they sensed a trap. A ram's horn was heard, and the Grand Heavies returned to the top of the ramp. Duiker turned in time to see the foolish dog clan edging forward, parting around Nil and Nether. They stood on either side of the horse, with both of their hands on the animal. The woman is heard saying, "Lord's push." Duiker could only think that the foolish dog clan in their heavy armor and horse were going to rush up the crest. That would mean that all the weight on the forelegs would force the riders onto the necks of their horses. Duiker whispered no. Rocks and sand fell down into the ditch. Helmets turned in sudden alarm. Someone was on the bank top. Malazan curses are heard from above. Then a head peered over the edge. One of the Marines is heard saying, "It's a hood damn sapper." The sapper's face was covered in dirt, gave them all a grin, and asked them all what a turtle does in the winter. Then he was gone. Duiker saw the foolish dog clan and stopped, staring at the edges of the banks. The Grand Heavy Infantry was doing the same, as if uncertain as to what to do. Dust was rolling down from the top of the ramp, and Duiker noticed some movement on the north side. Sappers with shields on their backs had begun moving forward. The sappers dropped down onto the ramp in the space below the top. Another horn sounded, and the foolish dog clan heavy horse warriors started a canter up the ramp. But now a company of sappers blocked their path to the ridge. Duiker is thinking about the sappers and how they had buried themselves underneath Rillo's nose. But the historian could not understand what for. The sappers, still wearing their shields, gathered and prepared weapons, one step free to wave on the foolish dog clan. The foolish dog clan surged into action up the ramp, waving their broadswords and riding their heavy armor like nothing Duiker had ever seen. The sappers charged the grand line, throwing granados. Explosions and screams followed. Every munition the sappers threw left an arching path into the Grand Heavies. Sharpers, burners, and flamers left Rillo's elite soldiers disintegrated. The foolish dog horse warriors reached the sappers, who went down beneath the hooves as horse after horse surged over them. The horse warriors gutted the rest of what had been a solid line of heavy infantry. They cleared the top as they swung their broadswords in slaughter. Another signal could be heard. The woman at the historian's side told him to move forward. Duiker had a thought that he's a historian and he needs to see, not fight. Duiker told himself that not this time. As he scrambled up the embankment, he is heard shouting, "See you tonight," to the female Marine. As he pulled himself from the top, he stopped to stare, in disbelief, at the honeycombed pattern on the bank's flat surface. He then swung his attention to the ramp. The Marines charged was stalled as they retrieved the trampled sappers. Beyond the crest, on the west flatland, the foolish dog horse warriors were chasing the remnants of Rillo's elites. Duiker saw Rillo's tent aflame, not far from the crest. Duiker suspected that Rillo had set fire to the tent itself to prevent Coltane from using anything inside of it before ducking out in his warren. Duiker turned to survey the dried-up lake bed. The battle down there still raged, and the 7th Army guarding the wagons still held. Duiker saw that it was not looking good for the 7th when 2 more blasts from a horn were heard. The foolish dog horse warriors were recalled from the crest. Duiker thought to himself that the mounts of the foolish dog would be spent after all they had accomplished. The historian frowned and turned around to focus on Nil and Nether. They were still with the horse, and he wondered what they had done. Distant howling caught the attention of the historian. A large mounted force was crossing the river. Then Duiker spotted shapes running out ahead of the riders, Wiccan cattle dogs and the Weasel clan. The Apocalypse army on the west side of the river were caught unaware. First by a wave of cattle dogs, and then by the Weasel clan themselves. Within what seemed like seconds, the Apocalypse army assaulting the 7th, and the wagons were either being killed or were in full flight. The enemy broke on both sides. The Weasel clan barely paused to regroup before wheeling around north to chase the northern enemy. Foolish dog horse warriors came back down the ramp to meet the southern enemies in their retreat. Duiker sank to his knees, overwhelmed. His emotions are a bucket of grief, anger, and horror. He thinks to himself not to speak of victory this day. A hand rested on his shoulder as a voice spoke that he struggled to recognize. The voice said that the Debral mock the nobleborn and have a name for them. It translates to chain of dogs. Coltane's chain of dogs. The voice was Lull's. Duiker turned to face him and noticed one blue eye staring in return. A mace had caught Lull's face, and where his other eye should have been, there was torn flesh. Lull said he was a lucky man. He told the historian to look, because not one tooth was knocked out. Ah!
Nicely done, sir. That was really good. Really good.
Thank you. But yeah, that was cool. And I picked out quite a bit of things to talk about.
Sure. Well, let's start knocking them off.
Sweet. So the Weasel clan at the beginning, I think this was clever of Coltane because of the Weasel clan's terrifying image. It forced the refugees to do what they were told. The horse warriors that is Weasel clan had like threaded skin, filed teeth into points, and were taunting the refugees they were sworn to protect.
Maybe they're just jerks.
Maybe. Yeah. From what I understand, the refugees were not happy that they weren't going to be a part of the main army, and we get a little bit more closure on the refugees in the next section. But they were definitely scared to continue being pissed. So,
well, I mean, I'd be scared too if you have like basically nobody protecting you.
Well, I mean, they did. The Weasel clan, or the Weasel clan was the ones that was like escorting them.
Well, right, but you're like they're at the back of things, so like if things go to shit and the army gets wiped out, I mean, they're going to be the last to go, and it's probably not going to be quick, right? Like,
right,
they're probably going to be tortured and killed. Like, it's not going to be fun.
Right. Yeah, exactly. The other thing that I had was is when Duiker, his thoughts were like he has some irrational thoughts, and his thoughts are irrational because he's thinking about knowledge of knowing one's name, and that like unnamed soldier was a gift. It was because of this thought that he would not return to the list of fallen. I just thought it was an interesting thought by Duiker. Kind of grim and like the end is nigh kind of thing. But there's some truth in this, right? To die named is to be mourned and funeral. But the unnamed soldier dying was heroic as they gave their life to the cause. So it's just as he has this thought about this, woman Marine he's lusting for, he doesn't want to know her name because of these very irrational thoughts,
I'm trying to remember exactly like how I kind of felt reading that, because I feel like it was just almost more, it's simpler just to be like basically a statistic, right?
Right. Yeah. Essentially is kind of what it's going for.
I think that's about, the best way I can put it.
I mean, it makes total sense. But yeah. And then the dried up lake bed that they're all inside of, that like the river Panta like divides is 2,000 paces east to west, and then 4,000 paces north to south. So it's a pretty big like basin, and Coltane is essentially just marching in a single file in like some type of wedge shape up this very skinny ramp, which is the only way out. And then Rouleau's got an army to the north of this wedge, or this like the seventh, so like it just, I'm getting a new appreciation for like battle formations and tactics because it was pretty clever.
So what I envisioned reading this was something similar to what we saw in Helm's Deep and Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, when the orcs are going up the little causeway ramp thing to the gate at Helm's Deep, and they got their shields up above them, and then the guys on the sides, they got their shields out on the side to protect them from the arrows. And that's kind of the vibe I got in a sense. Obviously, this is different, but like as far as like drawing a comparison or maybe putting it in an understanding for somebody trying to get a visual, that's kind of what I thought.
Gotcha. I guess I don't remember that particular scene, but
how do you forget that? That's like one of the like best battle scenes like ever, because then like Gimli like jumps out onto the side of it and starts whacking guys off and pushing them off and stuff.
Yeah, I don't remember. Sorry. I know I suck.
Justin.
I suck.
Nah, you're good.
Okay, so this is what I don't know if you could see this, but is it backwards for you? Is this
it looks like a Pokeball kind of.
Gotcha. But is this on your left side or your right side?
That is my left.
Okay, cool. So this is the west side. This is where Rouleau and the ramp is.
Yep.
And then this is Coltane and the Marines' wedge. This is the seventh and the wagons. And then this is Rouleau's armies on the north and south. Here's the river that they cross. And then here's the refugee camp guarded by the Weasel clan, is how I had imagined the map based on what I've read and what I've watched.
Given your artistic skills, Justin, that's quite possibly the worst drawing I've ever seen from you.
Yep, I did it in like 20 seconds. Such a dick. All right, cool. Well, moving on.
Sorry.
No, it's cool.
I'm just trying to be funny.
Yeah, no, it was very funny. And yes, this is definitely a terrible drawing. Yeah. But I was just trying to show you what I envisioned.
Right. Yeah, no, I got you.
Gotcha. Which is
Did you just draw that now, or did you draw that before?
No, I drew that while we were talking.
Oh, shit. I didn't know that.
Yeah, like as we were talking about the battle.
Gotcha. Okay. So you've not had that like prepared for like 2 weeks then?
No. I literally just did it.
Okay.
No, if I had 2 weeks to make it, it would look a lot prettier than that.
I didn't realize you just did it.
Oh, okay. All right. So you kind of take the art thing back?
Oh, for sure.
I'm so
because that's like that would be my best effort there.
This would be your 2 week effort?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's fine. All right. But yeah, no, that was just it's just the whole formation. And again, when I first read it, I didn't understand what was going on because my mind just doesn't work like that. I have to see what is being, described, and watching that video just helped put so much into place. Which made it makes so much more sense. And I kind of wish that when I had done something like that when I was reading The Wheel of Time, because there's a lot of battles in there, and like I read them, I understood the outcome and like some of the things that happened during those battles, but I didn't really associate that to like positions and lands and how everybody was formed up and shit like that,
Sure. Yeah.
Like I would love to watch the last battle video on everything that took place.
Oh, damn. That would be something.
Yeah. that was one of my points anyway. I was fascinated by how Rouleau had everything positioned. And you really kind of like, I can understand why Duiker is like, oh my God, we're going to fucking die. Like they're trapped inside of this lake bed with only one way out. And the ramp has been engineered to have like not just soft, gradual sides, like fucking straight down.
Yeah.
And somehow there are ditches like on the sides of the ramp, and archers are just loading up on the side of the ramp and just raining arrows down. And for them to like come out successful, like god damn.
It should have been like shooting fish in a barrel. Should have
Right.
been.
Exactly. Another thing that I thought was interesting is that Duker at one point thinks to himself, like, what will come of this to the gods below? I think it's interesting that he says gods as in like plural, because I was always under the impression that Hood was the only one, but maybe not. I don't know. What do you think of this, Sir Derricker?
I don't know. I mean, have we been introduced to all the gods?
Absolutely not. I would assume not.
So yeah, there could be something else there. I don't know. Not something I didn't pick up on that. Hadn't given it any thought until right now, trying to comb my brain, but nothing's really coming to mind.
Interesting. Okay. No worries. I just thought it was interesting. So I guess I'm just curious as to, if there are more gods. But then again, it could be, I'm assuming that this was death, like gods below. So maybe Hood has like ascendants that work for him or some shit. I don't know.
Well, I mean, we always get like, what about like we get these curses with like Tog's teats.
Mhm.
Maybe it's Togs. I don't know. I don't know what Togs is.
Maybe that's true. And another thing I thought was interesting is List, being that this is kind of his first battle. I really liked that interaction, and it to Duiker, List is kind of resentful about it. And that's just because like his other companions have already endured their first battle. So it's something both feared and anticipated. And I really like that line because only experience could shatter the fear of one's battle, right? So List has all this fear and of anticipation, whereas companions don't because they already have an experience with it. So it's just, in short, Duiker is saying that without experience, right, your imagination runs wild. And only after going through your first battle can you overcome those imaginations and anxiety leading up to it. So I don't know, it was just this a really cool thing. Like you almost kind of like feel bad for List. Or think he's not going to make it out or something.
I feel bad that he has to like go through it all because I feel like, I mean, I've never served in the military, but the men and women that sign up for it know that they could be called to duty. They could go into battle. They could be killed. They could be wounded, maimed, forever changed. And, it's a really brave thing. It's a scary thing. And I would guess that a lot of them, again, they sign up knowing that it is a possibility, but they would probably not want to do it. Like who would want to, I don't want to say like put your life on the line, but I mean, like you do what you do for your country, but given the option, I feel like you almost like his soldiers, his friends or whatever that have gone through battle already. I feel like they would probably not want him to go through it because they're forever changed by it, and probably not for the better, right? Like just think how, like these guys, they're not fighting with guns and tanks and airplanes and ships. Like you have a big knife or bow and arrow, so you maybe have a little bit of range, but you're stabbing people in the face like Duiker. Like it's up close and personal. Like it's gonna leave a mark on you. It's
traumatizing.
I don't know. Exactly. That's traumatizing. So his friends have gone through this traumatic event or events multiple times, And I guess like the person in me would feel like if I signed up and I did that, I wouldn't want somebody else to go through what I did because it's probably that bad.
Right.
I mean, I can't imagine having to like kill somebody, but I've never been in that position either where it's like, okay, well, it's kill or be killed. Like I suppose instincts take over and your training takes over, and you probably don't really think about it that way at that point in time. That's probably where like the shell shock comes in later on down the line, and the PTSD and like that type of stuff where you really reckon with the things that you've done. And how could you want somebody to go through that experience like you're on the same like level, if that makes sense, like you're on the same playing field. Like I just don't think you would want that. So it's like he's got this like anticipation of doing it, and then he does it, and it's probably worse than he thought it was going to be.
Right. Well, I mean, you brought up Duiker and the stabbing the woman's face, right? Like Duiker can't even handle the pain that he goes through in that moment, and having to kill when he doesn't want to. It was said in that section that his soul screamed.
Yeah, like how would you not be like, Jesus, like I just ended another person's, and obviously like they're trying to kill him, so like I get that. Again, it's kill or be killed, but
right,
like just to be in that position in the first place, like sorry, I'm rambling a little bit here, but like just obviously we type out our like summaries and sections, but like this part is all unscripted. Like
right.
we're winging this, so this is just natural conversation. So
right, yeah.
It's a dark place. I couldn't imagine a worse place to be than a battle like that. Not at all.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I feel like it's hard. It's not hard to summarize, but I feel like it's hard to talk about because there's so many pieces happening here. Like you've got Rouleau's forces, you've got the Seventh forces, you've got Coltane's forces, you've got the refugees and the Cattles, and then you've got like a force coming in from behind. Like there's so much chaos going on, that like, I don't know. I think the only way to really make sense of it is to watch that video of how everything took place. Because like we could probably, well, no, I know that for sure that we could probably have one episode just on this section alone, going through all of the intricacies and all of the moving pieces. Totally easy to do.
Well, what else did you have here?
What'd you think of the sappers' munitions surprising the fuck out of the Rouleau's elites?
Where they're just like hucking grenades into them?
Pretty much, yeah.
I just imagine them like popping out of the dirt and just like yeeting these things at them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it was cool when Duiker finally like, gets back up onto like the embankment of the slope. He sees this like honeycombed pattern, and that's where all the sappers were buried. And it almost kind of goes really slow in the book. But from what I understand and what I've gathered about the sappers is that they hid in the sand, got up, ducked down into a ditch where they prepared their munitions, got back up and just started chucking their munitions at, Rouleau's elites. And then the foolish dog clan in the heavy infantry almost tramples all of them just to get and clean everything up.
I thought I remembered reading a part where like I thought like the horses did like, well, I remember texting you and like asking like, so like what the fuck just happened? Did they just use like the sappers as like grip basically? Did they like, were they using them for like sturdier footing going up the incline? Because that's kind of what I thought happened.
Maybe. I mean, from this, it sounds like they got trampled, like they got run over.
Oh, so, I thought it was like intentional.
No, I thought that they were just in the way and they couldn't get out of the way fast enough. Because Nil and Nether, to me, are obviously providing the foolish dog horse warriors or their horses with energy from the horse that they've got their hands on, is what it sounds like to me.
I got that vibe too. I felt like when I read that, I almost thought like the sappers were kind of like a makeshift like road on the road kind of
Yeah.
deal. I don't know.
I mean, it could be. I feel like honestly, like the sappers were one of the things that I didn't understand the most. And the video that I watched didn't really go into a huge detail with them. So I didn't really
Well,
in that, but yeah.
somebody out there let us know. Like I said, I kind of felt like they were traction, for lack of a better term, I guess. Like, yeah, they got like trampled, like you said, but it was like
Intended.
I thought they were still like kind of buried a little bit, and they were like cobbles in the road or something. I don't know.
Oh, maybe. I guess that would explain the honeycomb pattern. But I
And
just
I
thought
mean, it's
like
not a
that
big
as
deal.
holes, you know.
Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, it gets the point across. I guess at the end of the day, the details don't matter a ton, but it would be cool to have a little bit of clarity on what exactly the sapper's role was, you know.
Oh, for sure.
The only other thing that I had a comment on was like how fucked up Lul's face was at the end there, and again his optimism because not one tooth was knocked out, but he's missing an eye. His cheekbone is smashed in. It just his nose I think is gone too. Like how fucking monstrosity does this look?
Well, chicks dig scars, man, but like they don't want some meth head with no teeth.
Well, that's fair. That's fair. Good point. Good point.
He's gonna steal Duiker's woman.
Right. But yeah, I guess outside of that, those were the comments that I had in this really cool detailed battle here.
It was a hell of a battle for sure.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it was intense,
And I
but it
mean,
was. Go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say you kind of get like another level of Coltane's mind, right? Like a new, not necessarily a new, but like a deeper appreciation for the way his mind works. Like he had to know that in a trap like this, that it wasn't going to be a good outcome. But like he made the best of a shitty situation. And knowing that Camus Rouleau is not that great of a military commander, he outcommanded him, is what he did.
You know,
Even when Rouleau had the landscape to his advantage.
I have two final thoughts on this section. This just came to me as you're talking, but Coltane said that the Wiccans were killing their scouts, so they didn't know what they were walking into. So either he lied about that, or it did happen. So how did he know to do what he did with the sappers? I wonder if he's got somebody like if he's got like a traitor from the other side on his side, like giving him info or something.
Maybe. I guess I never thought of that before. Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
I don't really have anything to support it, but it's just kind of a thought that popped into my head now.
Maybe he's communicating with another warlock that is maybe not, in Coltane's group, but maybe just watching. I don't know. That's weird.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's
Well,
the spirits. Yeah, the
well,
spirits. It's the spirits that are because wasn't in like one of the previous sections they like, oh now we can go back to like knowing where the enemy position is or whatever.
But I thought he said that they were busy or preoccupied or whatever this time.
But now they're not because yeah, I guess I don't know.
Something to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to see about that. And then the other thing I noticed is that this battle was kind of a stark contrast to the previous one where, Sakala, I felt like you had this bird's eye view, right? Duiker kind of is able to see everything that's going on. In this one, he's just in the middle of it. You don't get that bird's eye view. It's more of that first person point of view.
Right. Which is really cool. It makes it a little bit more impactful too.
Yeah, it's just, it's not the same thing over again in a different spot.
Right.
It's different. So that was the only thing I had to add there.
All right. Well, I guess at that point we can move on.
All right. Well, we're about 2 hours in here, a little over 2 hours in section 4.
Yep. I think this last will go by quick.
Yeah, this is a pretty short section. So, as a futile reminder in the ways of war, the losses of lives piled in. Duiker thought only Hood could smile in that regard. The Weasel clan waited for the Tithansi Lancers and the godling commander that led them. It had been ambushed by earth spirits and ripped to pieces. They were hoping to devour the remnant left inside it. Though the Weasel clan had laid their own trap, which was horrible in its own way, they used refugees, and hundreds were killed or wounded in the trap's execution. They could justify it by noting that they were outnumbered 4-1, and they had to sacrifice some in order to save the many. Yet they didn't say a word even as the refugees were less than thrilled with the plan. Duiker saw things differently, though. They held voiced reasons and excuses in contempt. In return, the Wiccans offered none either. Duiker suspected they respected them for their sacrifices more than words would say. It was unfortunate that the refugees didn't understand this, and though the silence from the Wiccans was just simply disdain for the lives lost. The Weasel clan did offer a final salute to the fallen. They annihilated the Tithansi. There were none left on the plain. Even the late arriving forces from Rouleau were cut down. They did the very same thing that Rouleau's forces would have done to them. The refugees didn't understand this, though. For all he and other scholars might try, he knew there was no way to put all these feelings into words. He arrived to Nil and Nether, standing with sweaty and bloody hands on a horse that was standing dead. He knew life force was a powerful gift, almost beyond comprehension. And the sacrifice this animal made to the almost 5,000 others, gifting them inhuman strength and force of will, was worthy and noble. Duiker thought of the animal's incomprehension at its destruction at the hands of 2 loving children.
So the one thing that obviously it's sad that refugees were, used as a trap, but I mean, think of all that was accomplished, right? Like the Semp God, I would hope, it seems there's some finality to him being taken out, right? And the fact that the Tithansi are pretty much annihilated. And
just fucking obliterated, like cut down to the man.
Right. And, and it's unfortunate. Like I could totally see it from the refugees side or their point of view. But I think what is upsetting them most is that they don't understand culturally that the Wiccans don't grieve that way. You know what I mean? So like, I think that is why they are upset, is that it doesn't seem like, it just seems like a means to an end to them. Whereas the Wiccans are like, you know what? Like, we're not going to talk about it. Kind of like the eyes are to place ghost hands, like the way that they honor is silence.
Or maybe they're just not allowed to yet. I mean, maybe once they get to the end of their journey, if they get to the end of the journey, then maybe they'll honor everybody that died along the way in just kind of one shot. But I don't know.
I think it's just kind of, it's Coltane's optimism, right? Like, I think that it's part of Coltane's optimism, and that like we're not going to put these thoughts into the universe because we don't want these thoughts being unfolded. I don't know. I thought it was a very short section with things that make you think,
Yeah.
Like a reflection, right? Like you just had this giant, huge battle, and then there's this really short section where you're thinking.
I feel a little bit of comparison between the horse and the refugees with the sacrifice.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know how to word it, I guess, but I feel like there's some similarities there.
There is, and I think it's just the animal. I think he's making the association that the animal is unable to comprehend what's happening, whereas the refugees are.
But you have the different, it says the hands of 2 loving children, and obviously the Wiccans, they don't really love the refugees, but they're just doing their job, I guess.
Yeah,
they're trying to survive. Some different respects on that side of things, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, the section is definitely trying to make the reader see 2 different points of views, and tying it all together with the horse here. It's just like I think that because the animal is unable to comprehend what's happening, even though there are two loving children who do understand what is happening, they are still doing it. And I think that is kind of the comparison between the refugees and the Wiccans, right? Is that the refugees may or may not understand or comprehend the situation, but unfortunately, they still have to do it.
Right.
They'll have to set the trap. So it's just the difference between the refugees and the animal is that while everything is taking place and afterward, the refugees can voice their opinions and their it was I guess that last section was nice and short and kind of makes you think and reflect a little bit, but I don't really have much more. I don't know if you do.
I do not.
All right then. The Imperial Warren was a shroud of gray on all sides. No wind stirred, but echoes of death and destruction hung in the air. Kalam settled back into his saddle, his eyes on the scene ahead of him. Ashes and dust had settled on the collapsed dome. It had a hole in the curvature of the dome. Kalam dismounted and plucked at the fabric covering his face and nose. He glanced at the others and then approached the structure. Somewhere beneath them stood a palace or a temple. Kalam reached forward and brushed some ash from one of the bronze tiles. A carved symbol revealed itself. The symbol was something he had recognized. Last seen, the stylized crown on another continent. Kalam's thoughts take him to that of Caladan Brood and Anomander Rake, a gathering of desperate foes to challenge the Malazan Empire. Kalam lightly touched the symbol. Black Dog. They were warring against local critters, with their supplies cut and the Moranth pulling back, and they needed them the most. The symbol he remembers being raised on a standard, high above Brood's army. Kalam forgot what the bastard called himself, and his thoughts raced around that. The High King? Kalor? Thousands of years old, if the legends spoke true? He had claimed to have commanded empires. Empires that would have made the Malazan Empire no larger than a province. He had claimed to have destroyed them with his own hands. The High King now stands as Brood's second in command. When Kalam had left, the Bridgeburners and Whiskey Jack were seeking to form an alliance. In his mind, he tells Whiskey Jack and Quick Ben to keep their heads low, as there is a madman in their midst. Manala interrupts his thought by asking him if he was done daydreaming. Kalam tells her that he hates this place because he cannot hear footfalls in this place. Manala studied the assassin. She finally said that Kalam looked frightened. Kalam answered this with a scowl. He turned to the others and announced that they were leaving this warren. Manala is like, what the fuck? And she didn't see a gate of any kind. Inside the assassin's head, he admits that she's right about the gate. But that doesn't matter, as they've covered the right amount of distance. He closed his eyes to shut out Manala. Only one thought escaped, and that was he hoped he was right. A moment later, a portal appeared. Manala calls Kalam a bastard and drills into him about not discussing this with him, as it might have led them to this a little sooner. Kalam opened his eyes to see the gateway 12 paces away. He tells them all to follow closely before striding through the gateway. He stepped on sandy cobblestones and it was night. They were in an alley between two tall buildings and there was no one in sight. He moved to a wall on his left. Manala appeared with her horse and Kalam's. Manala and Kalam banter quickly before she moves on. The rest came through the gateway. When Keneb came through and saw Kalam, he asked if this was Aaron. Kalam says that it was, and they were in an alleyway that wound through Necropolis. Keneb asked how far they were from the garrison. Kalam replied that they were about 3,000 paces from the garrison. Manala exclaims that they need to bathe. The littles exclaimed that they were hungry and thirsty. Kalam sighed and then nodded. Manala hoped that walking through dead streets wasn't an omen. Kalam responded by saying that how do you say it?
Necropolis.
Necropolis, thank you. I don't know why I accentuate the necro. saying the necropolis was surrounded by taverns for the morning, and it wouldn't be a far walk till they found one. So yeah, another again. I feel like we have this battle. We have the two sections kind of alluring to the battle itself, and then we've got like these really short, like quippy sections.
Yeah, and this one, well, yeah, go ahead, take it away.
Oh, I was
Talk your
just
point
gonna
there.
say it's they finally reach Aaron, so that's good.
Yeah, finally.
It feels like forever, but really it's only been 2 chapters.
Yeah, but it just feels like it feels like traveling through the ways in Wheel of Time.
Yeah, I get that
It just
feeling.
it feels a lot longer than what it really was.
It just everything's covered in dust though. We're at the ways, it was just all like darkness. The couple of things that I pointed out were Caladan Brood and Animander Rake. We get another nod to Gardens of the Moon here. And it's almost kind of strange when I was summarizing, like actually typing their names, because I haven't done it in a while. And it was just kind of good to be reminded of them. It's interesting that the sigil is showing up in Aaron, and it's reminding him. Well, not Aaron, but I'm assuming that what he's seeing is like a reflection of Aaron in this Imperial Warren, if that makes sense.
Sure, I think I don't always pick up on these like details and stuff. And again, it's been a couple of weeks since we've read this, so this stuff's not super fresh in my mind either, which doesn't help right now. And since this was your section and mine, it's even less fresh.
That's fair. It's just such a weird thought. I can understand imagery, like recalling events to you, and his ramble of thoughts is just, it's interesting, but I'm not sure what it means. But it seems like in the first part of like Kalam's thought here is that he's recalling a battle of Black Dog, which I feel like I've heard before. Like someone in Gardens of the Moon mentioned like a battle of Black Dog. And I feel like I can't tell if this is like a more recent memory or if this is like a past memory. And secondly, he talks about the High King or Kalar, but I only recall Prince Kaaz. Like, do you recall a High King? Or do you think that like High King and Kaaz are the same?
Also, no. I don't think they're the same.
Okay, yeah, because I thought that Prince Kaaz was second in command to Brood.
Unless it's an alias or something, maybe. Yeah, maybe it could be. I don't know.
I guess
we will have to see. Right?
Yeah.
We're going to have to what, Justin?
Raffo. Read and find out. Although I've got a feeling we're not going to find out until Memories of Ice.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, unless it happens in this next sub-book.
Maybe.
But, yeah, I don't know.
Those were the only really thoughts that I had. I mean, again, transitional section. They leave the Imperial Warren. Manala is upset because Kalam isn't being very forthcoming, which makes sense. Like, he's used to being alone. He's a loner. He doesn't really defer to anybody. So, yeah, it was a good section. It was easy to visualize, and I like that.
Should take my next section here.
Do it to it, Lars.
I don't know who Lars is.
Oh, it's from Heavyweights. You remember that movie? I'm feeling skinny, Tony, with Ben Stiller and a bunch of fat kids go to camp. It's like it's a Judd Apatow movie.
I've maybe seen it. I can't. If I have, it's been a long fucking time.
Maybe mid '90s. I think it came out in '95.
Don't remember them. Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe. All right. Squall Inn had claimed to see better days, but Kalam suspected that was false. The floor was bowed like a bowl. Chairs and tables sat on awkwardly leveled legs. Kalam had left his ragtag group to eat while a bath was prepared in a washtub in the garden, while he made his way to the main room and sat opposite the inn's only conscious patron. The Nippon man said it was the best food in the city as voted on by a council of cockroaches. He watched the blue-skinned man raise his drink to his lips and said it looks like he'd have another drink. Kalam signaled the barmaid, if she could be called that, for 2 more drinks. She adjusted her rat cleaver and went looking for their drinks. The man told Kalam she'd break his arms if he pawed at her. Kalam looked at the man and thought he could be anywhere from 30 to 60 years old, depending on his life's work. Kalam said he, the man, forced the question, Who was he, and what was his story? The man asked Kalam if he thought he just told that to anyone. Kalam waited him out, and he said, well, not everyone. Some become rude and stop listening. At that moment, an unconscious person at a table fell off and smacked his head on the floor. Kalam, the blue man, and the barmaid watched as he slid down on grease and vomit into the central heap. Fucking gross. It turned out the rats had only been playing dead as one climbed onto the drunk and its nose twitched. The blue man said everyone was a philosopher. The woman delivered their drinks and said Kalam's friend had asked for soap. He said he imagined they had. She said they don't have soap. She left, and the man said they must be new to town. Northgate? Kalam agreed. The man said that was a hell of a climb with horses. Kalam said that meant the north gate was locked. The man said it was sealed with all the others. Maybe they came in the harbor. Kalam said, maybe. The man said the harbor was closed. Kalam said, how do you close Aaron Harbor? The man relented and said it wasn't closed. Kalam took a drink of his beer and went perfectly still. The man said, it only gets worse as you drink it. Kalam asked for some news. The man wanted to know why he should tell him anything. Kalam said he bought him a drink. The man asked if he should be grateful. After all, he tasted it too. Kalam said he's not usually this patient. The man said he should have spoke up sooner then. He said some ales grow in you and some on you, and wished him good health. Kalam told him he had slit uglier throats than his before. The man set his drink down and said that corno bowls. You got any idea on the pronunciation there, Justin?
Where is it? Oh, yeah.
Corno bowls?
Corno bowl.
Sure. The quinoa bowl locked him out last night. He was wandering the streets until one of the high-fist patrols picked him up for breaking curfew. It had been becoming a common practice. Wives in the city were having a revelation. He also said fish weren't the only slippery thing in the city. Why, he himself had been arrested 4 times in the last 2 days. He had to identify himself, show his imperial charter, but he was lucky. He found his crew in one of the cells. With Open's luck, he'll have them out tomorrow, and they'd be scrubbing the deck in no time. He said he knew next Kalam would be asking for favor to board his ship, looking for passage back to Unta, and hey, he's sailing in 2 days with 20 Marines, the wealth of Aaron, and the High Fist's treasurer. But there's room on board after all. Kalam sat silent for a moment, and then said the gods were smiling, and who did he thank for this arrangement? The man said it was a friend of his, though they've never met. But Kalam will board a ship in 2 days, the Ragstopper. The man's name was Salkilan, and he'd been waiting for you. Kalam wanted to know how he knew he would be at this inn. He didn't even know it existed an hour ago. The man said it was an informed guess based on it being the first one coming down from the gates in the necropolis. I actually quite enjoyed this section. I don't think I did a very good job summarizing it, but the banter going back and forth with this guy and Kalam, about, oh, you came in the gate? Well, the gate's locked. Okay, we came in the harbor. Well, the harbor's closed. How do you close a harbor? Okay, you're right, it's not closed. I loved it. It was some good humor. I really enjoyed that.
I know it's a disgusting visual, and I'm like eating right now, but I really love like the way that Erickson accentuates this room with this drunk man passing out on the floor and then like sliding in to the center.
Oh yeah, fucking just
like
horrid.
It was just like, yeah, you really get a sense of how this room is shaped,
Yeah. Not it's not I don't know, probably not getting an A on its health inspection visit.
Yeah, I think it would be deemed condemned.
Probably.
That foundation is fucked.
Yeah. A few things. I thought it was interesting that I'm just going to call him Quinoa. He's got multiple wives apparently, and they all locked him out of his house. Thought that was kind of funny.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get this reference that fish weren't the only slippery thing in the city. So I wonder if that's not is Krupp mucking around here? Is that a reference to Krupp, the slippery eel?
Well, I know that maybe, or his agents, because I know in Gardens of the Moon he said that he had agents everywhere, right?
I guess I don't remember, but I wouldn't doubt it. So it's maybe if it's not him directly, it's still a tie to him.
Yeah, I think so.
And I liked the banter, and the guy's like, "Oh, yeah, come aboard my ship. We'll go to Unta. I've got 20 Marines." Like, clearly this guy's just being a sarcastic, like, dickbag here.
But I mean, I get the feeling that he's expecting Kalam, right?
Yeah, but I feel I just with his, like, again, like, my perceived sarcasm about it is he was probably, like, pressured into it, and he's not, like, thrilled about it. Maybe he doesn't want it. Maybe he doesn't want, like, somebody that's high profile on his ship. It's going to draw attention or something. I don't know.
I mean, that makes sense, but it also kind of sounds like that the guy that's waiting for Kalam on the reg stopper is Salk Elon. But when I first read it, I thought Salk Elon was who he was talking to now.
I think I thought that at first too, from what I remember, and then I think I also came to that realization that it must be this other guy.
Mm-hmm. So
I agree with you.
Who do you think it is that? I mean, yeah. I guess do you have any predictions as to who's talking to this guy?
No,
I mean,
not yet.
apparently it's a friend of Kalam's, though they've never met.
Yeah, I mean, right now I don't have any predictions or guesses as to who this person's identity is.
I mean, I guess my mind always went to Quick Ben.
Could be
It
just
seems-
like like a fake name, something like that, maybe.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. That's fair. Yeah, no, I really liked I really enjoyed the setting in the section and as well the banter, with this dude and just it just got a really cool headcanon around it. The beer tastes like shit, obviously, because he stops after he first sips it and just like the guy's like, it only gets worse if you keep drinking it, So
I can't remember the guy's name, but I had this, like, when I read that, fuck it, Michael Caine. I couldn't remember his name, but like that's the voice I read that in, Michael Caine's voice. This ship captain.
yeah,
I don't know why. That's just like, he's like, well, I don't know. That was just my headcanon for it.
makes sense.
And I like that would obviously be much too small a role for Michael Caine, but I mean, he's awesome, and I don't know. That's just what popped into my head.
Makes sense. I feel like this scene here would make like a good skit, like
For sure.
good comedy skit. So
Yeah, I agree
mean,
with you.
It's so well positioned. I could see this type of section maybe not or being underappreciated a little bit, but it definitely is a very big stark contrast to what you read at the beginning of the chapter.
Yeah.
But I guess outside of that, I don't really have much more to say about it. It's pretty short section.
Yeah. I don't have anything else either.
All right, we'll move on to mine. Alam slammed the rickety door behind him. His thoughts are of Quick Ben, how it couldn't be possible that the High Mage arranged all this. Manalo was sitting at the table and asked the assassin what was wrong. He closed his eyes and sighed. He finally tells her that he's delivered them to Aaron, and this is where they must part ways. He tells Manalo to tell Captain Keneb to find a patrol, or until one finds him, and to make his report in the city to the city commander, but to leave the assassin out of that report. She wondered what they would say about how they got into the city. Kalam tells her to say that a fisherman brought them into the city and to keep it simple, stupid. Manala asks if that was it then. Was he not even going to say goodbye to the children? Keneb and Self could give him their gratitude for saving their lives. He doesn't respond, but rather tells Manala to get out of Aaron and go back to Kwantali. Manala tells Kalam to not do it this way. Kalam responded that it was for the best and this was the safest way. Hesitating a bit, he said that he wished it would have been different. A melon hits his cheek. He wiped his face and then gathered his saddlebags. He tells Manala that the stallion is hers. In the main room, the assassin made his way back to the captain's table, where he tells the man that he's ready. The man gave a look of disappointment and said that if the assassin says so, then it'll be a long walk to where the rag stopper's moored. Kalam tells the captain that the rag of shirt he was wearing wouldn't help, and that he must be looking forward to changing his disguise. The captain responded by saying, "What fucking disguise? This is my lucky shirt." So, yeah, I can believe Quick Ben as being the culprit to arrange all this? I just want to know how,
Yeah, I don't know how either. But I didn't even remember from it does seem that or it does appear that it must be like Quick Ben somehow.
Right, but how would he know that he was going to use the stone he gave him there instead of where they had planned on it,
I don't know. I mean, it's just it must be like they said in Gardens of the Moon, just schemes within schemes within schemes.
So do you think that Quick Ben is Shadow Throne related? Because think about it, who saw Kalam go into the Imperial Warren?
I don't know. It must be then, right?
Aptorian, right? And then she met with probably Amanus, right? The Shadow God. Or to follow her, to follow the followers. So how easy would it have been for Amanus to be like, hey, Quick Ben, he's an Imperial Warren headed for Aaron.
And then you tell these other people to follow him.
Mm-hmm. So maybe Quick Ben is still on Shadow Throne's side. But yeah, I think that Kalam is having a moment of he wants to do what his heart wants to do, but his mind is telling him not to.
Yeah, I definitely got a lot of like vibes of like reluctance and regret.
Yeah, but again, really short section and definitely feels like setty uppy where the next, like what's going to happen next, so to speak.
Right.
But outside of that, I don't have anything else.
All right, I'll take my last section here. Lestara leaned against the wall in the small room. She watched as Pearl paced back and forth near the window. He was talking. He said it was in the detail. If you blinked, you would miss something. Lestara said she needed to report to the Red Blade commander, then she would return here. Pearl asked if Ortal Citral would give her leave. She said she wasn't giving up on this chase unless he ordered her to. Pearl said hell no, he enjoyed her company. She said he was being facetious. Pearl said, only a little bit. She hasn't shown much humor in their travels, but they've had a damn good adventure so far. So why end it now? She looked at her uniform and felt comfortable in it. The armor she wore while disguised was trashed, and she was happy to be rid of it after the claw healed her. Pearl offered no information on the demon that appeared during the fight on the plane, but Lestara could tell it troubled the claw. It weighed on her mind too, but she thought now it was in the past. She asked if he would wait here for her. He said he would wait until the end of time if that's what it took. She said morning would be good enough. Turning into fucking Romeo, he said he would count the heartbeats until then. She left the room, closed the door, making her way through the kitchen. The cook and the helpers watched her warily as she made her way to the door. She was used to the look as the Red Blades were feared. She stepped into the alley and thought to herself that she never wanted to travel via the Imperial Warrens again. On her way to the garrison compound, she was stopped by a dozen soldiers. The sergeant wished her a good evening. She nodded and said she understood the High Fist had imposed a curfew. She asked if the Red Blades patrolled also. He told her they did not. She asked if they were given other responsibilities then in that case. He said he imagined, and from her words and other things, she must be new in town. She confirmed, and he asked how she arrived. She spoke truthfully and said by Warren, and she had an escort. He said it sounds like an interesting story. All the same, he needed her weapons now. She was confused. He asked her if she wished to speak to her commander and join her comrades in arms. She said yes, of course. He said by decree 4 days ago, by the High Fist, the Red Blades were under detention and awaiting trial for treason against the Malazan Empire. Now he needed her weapons. Lestara was speechless, but offered no resistance in turning her weapons over. She asked if their loyalty had been challenged. He had no evil in his eyes when he told her that he was sure her commander would have more to say.
I want to know what is up with Pearl. Like, again, he just seems too convenient.
Do you think, again, this is just kind of coming to me now, he couldn't, do you think he's the one that's like the mole for Coltane?
Maybe.
I don't know. No, I don't think so, because Coltane seemed pretty dang surprised to hear the news of the claw. Like, it didn't seem like a faked reaction. I don't think that's the case. That's a bad idea.
Yeah, I don't know. All that sarcasm in their conversation at the beginning of the section, like, I'll wait for you forever, like, I think it's almost preluding to the fact that he knows she's going to be arrested or like detained.
I guess I didn't think of that.
You know what I mean?
Definitely
Like,
could be the. Yeah,
so, but then again, how long were they in the warren?
it must have been a couple days, right?
So he would have known about the Red Blades prior to meeting Lestara.
How do you mean?
So he would have known about the decree as the Red Blades were under detention for treason against the Malazan Empire.
So you think Pearl came from Aaron through the Warren to where Lestar was, and then went back through the Warren to Aaron?
No, I think that he knew that there was a. I'm sure this is not happening in Aaron. I'm sure this is happening all over the Seven Cities.
So you don't think that they're in Aaron?
No, I think that they're in Aaron. I just think that Pearl knew before he met up with her about the Red Blades. And I think that he knew that once they got to Aaron, that she would be detained.
Interesting.
Again, he still seems out of nowhere.
Yeah.
It smells fishy.
Agreed. I definitely don't feel like I trust him.
Yeah, not at all. Not at all. But I mean, yeah, I don't really know what to make of this. I think it's interesting. Like, I want to know what it was what happened that made them treasonous to the Malazan Empire.
Yeah. I'm curious about that too. I guess I don't. Yeah. I'm sure we're gonna find out about that, or at least something on it.
Right. But yeah, I guess outside of that, I don't have any other thoughts or comments on that section. It's, again, we have interactions with characters that we're not very familiar with. And what all this means, I have no clue.
Yeah, we'll just have to find out, see what we learn along the way.
Right.
But yeah, why don't you bring us home here, good friend?
All right. Manala told Kaneb that Kalam was gone. Kaneb's jaw dropped as all he could say was, "Oh." Kaneb watched as Manala was packing her things. He asked her what she was doing. She whirled on him and said that Kalam wasn't going to get to leave in that way. Kaneb starts to say her name before Manala interrupts him to say that he'll wake the children. Kaneb said that he wasn't shouting. Manala tells Kaneb to tell the commander everything but Kalam. Kaneb said that he wasn't stupid. Manala apologizes and tells Kaneb that she knows he's not stupid and to forgive her. Kaneb said that forgiveness should be asked of her sister and the children. Manala said that she will. Kaneb wonders how Manala was going to pursue a man that doesn't want to be pursued. She grinned and responded that he asked that of a woman. All Kaneb could say was, "Oh, Manala." She reached up to brush the tear from his cheek. He told her that he will remain hopeful and that she should go say goodbye to her sister and the children. Again, really short section, and I'm kind of digging this. And I wasn't expecting it, but it kind of seems like they both have the feels for each other, but are just too stubborn to admit it. And I kind of hope Manala becomes a companion of sorts to Kalam. And I get the feeling that they would work well together. And not to mention how dark these books can get. And even though one feels lost in darkness, sometimes it's nice to have a light in such a story as this. You know what I mean?
For sure. Yeah, a little good feels.
Yeah. So I could totally see Manala and Kalam just being this like brutal force. But yeah, it was a good chapter. A nice little send-off section.
I'm looking forward to getting to read on here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I'll get to start tonight or not, but
no, it's close to bedtime. What are predictions? What do you got?
I feel like I'm thinking the only thing that I really feel like we're gonna get something on. I think we're gonna see Apsalar transition here to Shaik, or at least start. I don't know what kind of process it's gonna be, but I think we're gonna at least start that in this next chapter.
Yeah, I would agree, because we didn't get any of Apsalar or Fiddler. We didn't even get any Felazin or Krupp, or not Krupp, but Culp. and Hebrick. So I think that this next chapter, being that it's 20 pages, is short. That
Yeah,
seems
it was basically like 22 and a half pages.
right. Yeah. So I feel like they're primarily going to be Felazin and Apsalar.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to get much Duiker Coltane in this next chapter. Maybe we'll get some, I don't know. But yeah, I think we'll probably see quite a bit of the other characters, and yeah, maybe this will be the dagger for the pie for you, Justin, this next chapter.
Probably. Fuck.
Man, who else? We haven't seen Poost.
Yeah, we haven't seen Poost, but that's because they're all out looking for Shaik's body.
Yeah, they kind of teamed up, didn't they?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, that's kind of I think we'll see a lot of it'll. Yeah, Felson. I don't know. What the hell were they even doing?
They were in
Well,
that.
they found all those statues and shit. The people, right?
Right. Yeah. Then they uncovered something about the Ivers, the Talan.
I have no fucking clue where that's gonna go.
I don't know either.
No idea.
Yeah, I'm assuming that is probably part of the whole things that take place in 3 different books or whatever. So
Yeah, we'll have to see. But I'm looking forward to getting through it. We'll have our chapter.
we're bringing.
And we'll see. Yeah.
Right?
Well, for the wrap up, right?
Yeah.
So that'll be in roughly 2-ish weeks, mid-month ish.
Yeah, that sounds good.
It's gonna go quick. Well, I guess that's not like next week's like mid-month. So it'll be it'll be good to get another chapter under our belts, another few pages closer to the end of this book. Yeah, I don't know if I have any other thoughts on this chapter, sir.
No, it was a good chapter. I had a lot of fun summarizing it. I had a lot of fun with all of the resources, mainly the Battle of Geller Ridge video. Yeah, it was good. It was a good chapter.
It was. Yeah, I don't have anything else you want to add here at the end of things.
No, I'm really enjoying this book. I remember being worried that I wasn't going to like the series, but it's really becoming my favorite.
Yeah, it's holding that torch pretty high, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So I feel like we probably could have started with a smaller series as first-time podcasters, but I'm deep down glad that we did Malazan.
Hey, go big or go home. What is this? Is this episode number 50 overall?
This
What
is
are we at?
Oh shit. I haven't even been paying attention. Shame on me.
Well, no, I don't think it is. I think this, so you're doing 47, you're recording 47. I'm just looking at our episodes right now. 46 you just put out.
So
I don't know. My uncut and raw, I guess, counts as an episode. But.
We have 28 in Gardens of the Moon, and then we have 3 for Vasquez. We have 14 uploaded currently. So the one that we published, the one that I'm editing currently, so we're at 47. So this is our 48th episode.
So our wrap up with Evan will be 50.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet. That's pretty cool.
Yes, it will be. 50 fucking episodes, man.
Yeah. So I guess maybe we'll wrap this up here. Yeah, again, it's been a couple weeks. So check us out online. Check us us on Twitter. That's our most active place. Justin, we're up to 334 Twitter followers.
Ooh. And I think on YouTube we are at 84 subscribers. So
Nice.
There was quite a jump there. Really excited to get to 100.
I put out a call to action on that to try to get us to 100 a week or two ago, and we got a few out of it. So thank you, everybody.
Yes.
Check out our Patreon. We've got 2 really affordable tiers. Send us an email. Send us your thoughts. Like at the beginning of this episode, we read one on the air, so that was fun. Yeah, we're happy to have you on the ride here and joining us every week or thereabouts.
Yeah, it's good times. I'm really impressed with the community. and one, how supportive everybody has been, and two, just the wealth of knowledge that everybody's willing to share is just amazing.
For sure. And we'll have to be careful, Justin, because I forgot about this. I guess we can mention this now. What day were we doing this? Where's the fucking calendar?
What, the 22nd?
Yeah. Okay. So we might have to push that wrap up with Evan, because on the 22nd we will be talking with Maura and Lee again, and I imagine this episode will probably be out roughly about the time that we do this with Smileys. But we are gonna talk about Justin's favorite movie ever, 2001: A Space Odyssey.
No.
Crickets, huh?
Oh my god. I don't need can we talk about that movie? Can we do something?
I think it'll be interesting, because it just like earlier this week or late last week, it happened to be that movie's like 55th birthday or something, and I stumbled across a Twitter thread with some pretty cool stuff that I will dig through and have some stuff prepared for when we talk with them. So I think it'll be cool, and maybe it'll give you a different perspective on it. Maybe you still won't like it, and like I said, Kelly and I watched it once, and we got pretty fucking lit when we watched it. And I started rewatching it again. I got about another 45 minutes to get through to finish it. So yeah, it'll be different, but it should be a good time. I'm hoping. I got my fingers crossed for you, Justin. The enthusiasm is real.
No, I'm just getting excited for this pie in the face. That's all. Okay. All right. Well, yes, we're Minnesota goodbying it. All right.
We are. Have a good night, man.
Yeah. Take her easy.
See ya.
Bye.